The plain begins in silence, dry enough to crack. Low ridges of pale stone run toward the horizon. Dust moves in thin sheets between thorn-like ground plants. Small herds cross the open flats with their heads low, following no river, no valley, no visible trail. Then the light changes, a shadow enters from above. At first it looks like a storm cloud, wide and orange at the edges, drifting against the morning sun, but the lower surface is wrong. It is not soft vapor, it is tangled, dense, threaded with black cords that hang down like the roots of an overturned forest. The roots are in the sky. They move beneath the cloud bank in a slow, floating mass thick as ancient trunks near the center, fine as hair along the edges. Some cords hang hundreds of meters toward the ground. Others braid into curtains and knots, twisting gently in the charged wind. Nothing connects them to the soil. The forest is above. The ground is beneath its shadow. As the floating roots pass over the dry plain, the herds below begin to turn with them. They do not run from the shadow, they enter it. Small, narrow, backed grazers step into the dimness and slow their pace. Their skin darkens where the cooler air touches it. Dust settles around their feet. Above them, the root tips open. Each tip splits into a crown of wet fibers. The fibers reach upward, not downward, pressing into the thick orange clouds that surround the floating mass. The clouds fold around them like soil around a root system. Blue light moves inside the vapor where the fibers drink. The first drop falls several minutes later. It is not clear water. It is blue, heavy, and bright, carrying dissolved minerals pulled from the charged cloud bank. The drop hits a stone basin on the plain and spreads like liquid glass. Within seconds, hidden pores in the ground open. Pale moss curls upward. Tiny shell-backed organisms emerge from cracks and begin to feed. The sky roots make rain but not for themselves alone. The shadow beneath them is a moving pasture. Ground life follows because the roots feed the world below. Wherever the floating forest passes, nutrient rain falls in scattered lines. Shallow pools appear. Sleeping seeds wake, buried grazers surface. Insect-like filter mouths rise from the dust and wait for blue droplets to collect on their fringes. The roots do not fall randomly. Their tips map the air. Long feeder cords test the density of the clouds. Thick anchor roots inflate with lighter, than, air chambers, holding the mass at a steady height. Fine hair roots spread into charged vapor and draw water, salts, and metallic traces from the cloud layers. When a cloud pocket is rich, the root cluster darkens and tightens. When it is poor, the cluster thins, releases, and drifts onward. The floating forest is not weightless, it survives by balance. Gas-filled bladders lift the upper root webs. Mineral, heavy roots pull downward. Broad membrane fans catch warm rising air from the plain. The whole organism hangs between sky and ground, too heavy to fly, too light to fall, always adjusting. Its migration is slow, but the shadow is enormous. By midday, the roots cover an entire valley. The ground beneath them cools. Animals that would never stand together in open light gather inside the moving shade. Long-legged grazers feed beside flat-backed burrowers. Winged gliders cling to hanging root curtains and sip condensation. Spiral, shelled scavengers follow the drip lines, scraping blue mineral crust from stones. Above, the cloud bank thickens, the roots drink harder. Blue drops begin to fall in chains, each one glowing briefly as it leaves the fibers. The rain does not become a storm. It becomes a pattern. Lines of nutrient fall mark the path of the root tips. The herds below know these lines. They move from one to the next, grazing where the drops have already awakened the ground. For the smallest lives on the plain, the roots are weather. For the larger herds, They are a road for the soil, they are a temporary season. The floating root forest never stays long. If it remained above one place, its own shadow would starve the ground plants, its mineral rain would overload the basins. The cloud bank would thin and break apart. So it moves with the high winds, drinking one layer of sky and feeding one strip of land before drifting away. Behind it, the plain is changed. The bare dust becomes spotted with blue pools, short-lived flowers open in rings. Soft-bodied grazers leave spiral tracks around the wet stones. Then the sunlight returns, the pools shrink, the flowers fold. The animals move on because the shadow has already moved ahead, the roots are pulling the ecosystem across the land. Late in the afternoon, the floating mass reaches a canyon. The plain drops away sharply, and warm air rises from the deep stone throat. The root forest responds before the lower tips cross the edge, membranes open along the upper mass, dark curtains spread like sails, the hanging roots retract, pulling their longest drinkers upward before the canyon winds can tear them loose. For the first time the shadow breaks, the herds below hesitate at the canyon rim above them, the forest folds itself tighter, root bundles twist into thick cables, cloud-feeding fibers seal their crowns. The whole mass narrows, becoming a darker shape against the orange sky. It does not fight the rising wind. It rides it, slowly. The root forest climbs, the underside lifts higher than before, tiny drops fall from retreating tips, too few to feed the ground. The animals wait in the broken shade, restless, exposed, watching the dark mass pass over the canyon. Then the far side catches it. A dense cloud bank, trapped against the higher cliffs, rolls over the floating roots, the sealed tips open at once. Thousands of fibers bloom into the vapor, blue light spreads through the clouds like veins under skin. The rain returns, it falls first on the cliff face, then on the slope below, then across the waiting herds. The animals surge forward, not in panic, but in recognition. The road has reopened. At the canyon's far edge, the largest roots descend lower than before. They drip continuously, forming temporary blue streams that run between stones. Small ground organisms follow the streams, root-perching gliders descend to feed, broad-mouthed grazers open their neck sacs and store the mineral water for the dry miles ahead. The forest above has become a moving river. Night changes its shape. Under the dark sky, the roots glow from within, not brightly, not like fire, more like pulses moving through deep tissue. Each pulse travels from the cloud-feeding tips to the floating bladders, then down into the dripping crowns. Green marks water intake, blue marks mineral flow, violet marks stress. When the violet appears, the lower animals move faster. A dry gap is ahead. The cloud layer thins toward the east, and the floating forest begins to starve. Root tips open and close without drinking. Bladders tighten, hanging cords curl inward to conserve fluid. The shadow below becomes smaller. For several hours, no rain falls. The herds compress into the remaining shade. The smallest animals shelter beneath the bodies of larger ones. Dust rises around them above. The roots twist through empty air, searching for a new cloud bank. Then before dawn, lightning flickers inside the eastern sky. The roots feel it first. Every feeder crown turns in the same direction. The floating mass begins to drift toward the charged clouds. It moves slowly, but the ground herds move with urgency now, climbing a long slope under the fading shadow. The first root tip touches the new cloud just as the sun rises. Blue light explodes through the vapor. Rain falls in wide, heavy drops. The ground answers immediately. Dark soil opens. Dormant mats unfurl. Tiny translucent towers rise from the mud and catch the mineral rain in cupped heads. The herds spread out, feeding in silence beneath the restored shade. From above, the entire migration becomes visible. Clouds are not just weather here. They are soil suspended in the sky, roots are not hidden underground, they hang above the world, drinking vapor and minerals from the air. Rain is not simply falling water, it is the forest feeding the ground, and shadow is not absence of light, it is a path. By the time the floating roots pass beyond the ridge, the plain behind them is no longer dead. It is marked with temporary blue pools, fresh tracks, open seed mats, and animals already turning toward the next moving darkness. The sky forest continues east, slow and vast, its root curtains trailing through orange cloud. Below it, the herds follow, not because they understand the forest, because every life on the plain has learned the same rule.